Hello, everybody, and thank you very much for coming to this meeting here. I'm Paul Radu, the co-founder of the Organized Crime and Corruption Reporting Project, a network of investigative reporting centers operating right now on 6 continents and covering, as the name is already mentioning, organized crime and corruption. And I'm accompanied here by my colleagues, Pavla Holcova, from this organization that you can see here, Investigace. Would you say a few words about yourself, Pavla?
Yeah, hello. We are a small investigative media based in Prague, Czech Republic, but I also work for OCCRP and covers Central European region and, for some reason, South America.
Thank you, Pavla. And then we have Cecilia Anesi from ERP Media. Would you say a few words, Cecilia, please?
Hi, yes. ERP Media is an investigative media outlet from Italy. It's published by the only Center for Investigative Reporting of Italy called ERP, and ERP is also a member center of the OCCRP network, which is why we know each other and why we also get a lot of inspiration and help on the, investigating organized crime and corruption, but also how to keep ourselves as safe as possible, and we collaborate with other colleagues, like with Investigace a lot.
And just a few words about OCCRP. OCCRP works a lot with Pavla, with Ceci, with many journalists around the world exposing crime and corruption, and this has a huge impact on the corrupt and the criminal. You can see here some of our numbers. Our reporting contributed to the recovery of lots of money. It's actually close to $11 billion from all sorts of bad parties around the world. This was money that was recovered by various governments and so on. And you can see there are other actions, as a result of our work. So this type of work, of course, attracts a lot of attention from oligarchs who are hurt by our investigative work, mafias in Italy, organized crime in the Czech Republic and beyond. So between the three of us, I believe we can share lots of experience when it comes to ensuring the safety of our work, the safety of our families when working against organized crime and corruption, and against kleptocracy at the end of the day. So what we'll do today is we'll share with you a little bit of what we had to deal with and a little bit of our solutions to the problems that come with confronting especially organized crime and other dangerous people. Now at OCCRP, at ERP, at Investigace, at the Czech Center for Investigative Reporting, what we're doing is we're looking at security in a holistic way. Security can be mostly split in 3 parts, right? You have digital security, you have legal security, and you have physical security. But all 3 of them are actually intertwined. So how we'll do it today is we're going to talk 10 minutes about each of them with a few tips and tricks attached to everything that come from our experience. And we have extended, presentations about this that we're willing to share with you. Our protocols, our security protocols, and all of that. We'll just skim through them because we don't have enough time to kind of go deep into everything. And then we'll leave about 10 minutes, 15 minutes for your questions, where we're hoping to be able to answer questions that might arise. I'll start with what may be seen sometimes as the easy part, but it's really pretty tedious. It's one of the hardest things that we have to confront as investigative reporters, and that is the lawsuits. And I'll start by showing you a very quick video that we did. Is something that works here?
Serbian investigative outlet Creek is fighting 12 lawsuits. That's more lawsuits than reporters in their newsroom. Creek is known for its hard-hitting investigations exposing political corruption and organized crime's ties to the government. These lawsuits against Creek are all filed by people connected to the Serbian government and are considered SLAPs, strategic lawsuits against public participation. The goal isn't to win, it's to harass, intimidate, and silence reporters. Fighting these lawsuits requires expensive attorneys, involves years of emotional stress, and distracts journalists from doing their critical job of holding power to account. And Creek isn't alone. Corrupt politicians and wealthy business people are increasingly filing SLAPs around the world to stifle independent journalism. Reporters shield.
So, these lawsuits, and we have plenty of them at the level of OCCRP, we have right now over 70 lawsuits brought by various types of parties. I was sued personally because usually what these people do want to sue you, the oligarch, the organized crime figure, they will target the journalist, they will try to isolate you from your organization as much as possible. They will hope you don't have the money to defend yourself. They will, go for all sorts of tricks to kind of, have you, first of all, be very busy, not have time to investigate them and such. And so I've been, for instance, through a court case in London. London is one of the jurisdictions where they usually sue you because it's very costly to defend yourself. And one thing that I learned when my court case started was that you should be very, very careful from the very beginning. Even if I'm from Romania personally, right? So and the court case was brought against me by an Azerbaijani member of the parliament, was also the liaison with the Council of Europe. And it was brought for a very straightforward investigation where we showed that the Azerbaijani government was bribing politicians in Europe, including in Italy. It was very straightforward. It was with bank accounts, with everything, everything documented. The guy still sued. He didn't win. That's a different story. But the thing is, at first I thought this is unbelievable. How come an Azeri can sue me in London? And I didn't pay attention to the case. And that was a big mistake at first. So you got to be very, very prepared for the lawsuits, and you got to pay attention from the very beginning, even if the court case is not brought in your own country. Sometimes, of course, the case will be brought against you, let's say in a country like Russia, where unfortunately, the rule of law doesn't quite exist at the time. So there are jurisdictions where you shouldn't probably defend yourself because you don't want to put yourself in a more dangerous situation than the lawsuit itself. So, but between us, I think we can share quite a bit of experience when it comes to the lawsuits, and a few tips and tricks. And I think Pavla had quite a unique experience in her own country that speaks to what kind of strategies to employ when you're sued, by very powerful people.
Yeah. I sued back. I sued the Czech Prime Minister, who was just on social networks spreading some comments about me and about my work. And, first I was just like, no, I'm not doing it, I will just ignore it and it will go away. And then my colleagues came and they said, well, you should do it because there is there are no legal guidelines also for other countries in EU how to handle such a cases. There are like two similar cases, but they are actually quite different. And one was about who is responsible for the content and the moderation of the hate speech on social networks if someone like a prime minister is spreading misinformation about a person. So I said, okay, I will go for it. And I sued the prime minister for a post on Facebook and his tweet that was actually just reposting, but saying that, I got into kind of fight with him because we published a story. After the story, he lost elections. So he lost power after 8 years when he was the prime minister. So he was very upset. So this post that actually was invented was that there was my picture, and I was saying next time when Andrej Babiš, the former prime minister, would run in elections, I would once again dig some lies on him and publish it. And I decided, like, okay, it's not very strong. I hired a lawyer who used to be a journalist himself, and we sued him, but we didn't really give much weight to it because we didn't believe we could win. And the first instance court said, like, no, you're a public persona, you need to, you know, handle it. But the second instance court said, yes, he's guilty and he needs to apologize. And, you know, we had a lot of fun when we've been writing the complaint to the court, and we said that 7 consecutive days he needs to publish on his social networks apology in this and that words, what really made him look like not a very smart person. And the court said, yes, he needs to do it, so
Pablo, this speaks to the fact that you should always fight back, and this is what we always do, what we're always doing as investigative reporters. They sue you, you always try to fight back. You know, they attack you, you fight back in any way you can, but first of all, through investigating more of the case. But let's put you in the shoes of a bad person. What would you do, you know, to sue the people in this room? What would your steps be to be successful against the journalists in this room?
First of all, I will sue you in a country where is full discovery, what means my team of lawyers will get access to your phone and computer. And in your phone and computer, I will go through all your private messages, and I will find at least one message that would portray me in a bad light. And then, based on this single message that's kind of emotional and not factual and not polite, I will build my lawsuit against you, because I would say, you know, this person is biased, you know, they were reporting because they wanted to take down my credit, my company, whatever. And yeah, that's easy to defend. And that's what happened, right?
Exactly, absolutely. So the discovery process in many countries it's really, really bad for journalists, right? Because the court will issue an order to be able to go through your inboxes, your emails, your phones, your everything. I went through such a process. It's pretty bad. In my case, as I mentioned, I was sued in London. There was a discovery process. There was a company from Chicago that was behind the discovery process that took all my data, you know, ran various type of keywords against my data. But guess what? The people suing you will give to the judge a list of keywords. And for instance, this guy wanted all the documents that contain the word Azerbaijan in my case. And the problem is I had lots of documents with the word Azerbaijan that concern sources and other things like that. And I didn't want to give those to the other party, you know, that was suing me, because that would mean that you'd endanger your sources. So you're put in very awful, you know, kind of positions when you're sued in this case. So, Ceci, again, let's put that criminal hat on. What would you do in order to be efficient against an investigative reporter? Although you know that there's no merit to the lawsuit that you want to bring. You just want to harass these people.
Yeah, so if I'm an Italian criminal or have some criminal interest in this country, what I would do is 2 things at the same time. First is sue you in criminal court, and that will allow me also to know your personal details, like your home address, perhaps, unless you're prepared and clever enough to always have your lawyer's details in your pocket, or in your mind, which is something that by now we became used to live with. And by the way, I want to thank one of our lawyers who is sitting in the room today. But, you know, you have to learn that. So the first times you might be unprepared, and as a criminal, I hope exactly that, so I can know where you live, because all I do is to scare you through a SLAP, like a strategic litigation against public participation. And I also like the fact that you will be criminally investigated as I was criminally investigated, and they're reporting about me. But then to add some more pressure, I will also ask for some damages, which is a thing that not only like criminals or, you know, mafiosi are doing, but also a lot of corporations, and we have been, as IRP Media, asked for damages lately by actual companies that do, you know, normal business, like wood lodging or run bus companies. So I ask for damages so that your small or medium media company in case it loses in first or second instance, just shut doors.
Let me just quick comment. When you are suing for damages, I would have one recommendation for those people who are suing us. When you put in amounts like 10 million euros, it's like it doesn't do anything to me because it's absolutely crazy. Those are amounts. If there would be 10,000, I would be scared. With 10 million euros on damages, I'm just like, yeah, whatever.
So just to summarize this, so this is the legal part, right? The legal threats, part of the 360 kind of thinking around security. It's be aware of SLAPs and what they mean. Be very consistent in the communication that you're conducting. First of all, don't use curse words. Don't say, I hate this guy, that's why I'm investigating the person, Because if in the discovery process that comes forward and someone finds that message, that can be used against you and that can lose you the case, even if your reporting is quite correct, quite honest. So be very consistent also in the sense of when you delete your communication. We're all using Signal and we have vanishing messages, disappearing messages and all of that. Be consistent with that. If you say you're going to use disappearing messages, always do that. So that when you go in front of the judge, they cannot argue, look, they only, erased those messages on that date, because that can lose you the case. That can show bad faith. So be very consistent in whatever you do. Messages should be very clean and be consistent in the approach to all sorts of applications that you're using, encrypted applications. It's always important to try to turn the tables against the people suing you. If they go for the discovery process, you go against them with the discovery process as well, and you should be very clever about it in how you actually approach the discovery, what kind of keywords you want to search in that other person's devices and all of that, because that might give you the key to winning the case as well. The other thing is sue back, attack them, that's also key. Now, we know that, lots of journalists don't have this means to protect themselves, not even to pay the lawyer in London, which is very, very expensive, sometimes a few hundred pounds per hour or per day. It's really a lot of money. So we put together at OCCRP, together with the Vance Center, an initiative called Reporter Shield, which functions as a sort of an insurance that pays for the expenses to protect yourself, in case, someone sues you in courts around the world. And the most dangerous jurisdictions are the jurisdictions that are very expensive. When they sue you in Geneva, in Switzerland, London, New York, Florida, and so on and so on. So there are places where you need to have the money to defend yourself, and this is what Reporter Shield, it's a program that's open to all journalists, and this is something that I would advise you to look into. So this is the legal part, but the legal part is usually just a step in the process of attacking your journalism. And of course, I'll go from the legal part to actually the digital part, and what we'll share with you here is a bit of our information security best practices. There's a presentation. And this is what we always do at OCCRP, what we do at IRP, Investigace. I won't go through all these slides here. There's a lot when it comes to digital security, but you gotta understand who's the opponent. It's clear. You gotta understand that if the FSB is your enemy, your levels of security need to be very, very high. You also got to understand that you won't ever be 100%, kind of insured against this type of threats. And you got to know what's latest in terms of the spyware that can be used against you and other tools. But really, you got to think about digital security, also in the psychosocial sense. Think about the information, think about your social circle, think about, information that sits on your laptop, information that sits on the cloud, all types of, the universe of information around you, and your friends. Your friends are also your information, and so on. And some of your friends will be outside of journalism, and if you expose yourself, you might expose them. You'll certainly expose your colleagues and so on. There's obviously the the traditional, let's say, threats that go with our business. We are always trying to be up to date with the latest when it comes to our security. What kind of devices do criminals use? What kind of devices do law enforcement agencies use in order to gather information on you? And we are always trying to go for the approach that makes sense, that's solid. Like I think Ceci and Pavla can talk about how you can harden your workplace. And can you say a few words about what does that mean? What does that mean in real terms?
Yeah, in real terms, it's, if I will put it cynically, it's making it more expensive to break into your office and install surveillance systems. We don't leave our computers over the night in the office. We always carry them with us. We have cameras installed, of course. So far, we don't have a panic room, but we were, recommended to have one with bulletproof doors, but I have no idea where would we put it in our two-room office. Also, you just don't let anyone in automatically. You communicate, you check who's coming, who's ringing the doorbell, and so on.
Yeah, I just want to add that we were discussing, ahead of this panel, and as an Italian, I want to say, you will think that a lot of this is exotic and weird to do. But actually, a lot of it is simple security steps that we have enhanced on our reporters, those who are more exposed, such as, if you compare to some years ago, security cameras were very expensive, very hard to install, but today it's very easy, like anyone with basic technology knowledge would know how to do that, and we have sort of forced those reporters to get used to it. And at the end of the day, it ended up being useful also for other more petty criminals type of breaking-ins, because sometimes you might have experienced breaking-ins and you don't know whether they're connected to your job or not. I mean, in normal life, it can happen. So it's very important to know what goes on. And so this basic surveillance and trying to keep your digital devices as clean as possible. And of course, we all live thinking that we have a spyware in our life, or at least those who have less resources for example, in Southern Europe, we cannot allow super advanced iPhones every 3 months as we should. Because we should have a sort of drug dealer's life, but we don't. Then it becomes so. Obviously, security is an issue, because to be always 100% sure, you will need to re-update yourself and change all the devices and change all the protocols so often that in the end your work routine becomes impossible. But there's still practical things and small steps that can be done and are super important. So in that regard, we took a lot of the practical advices at OCCRP. And again, when it comes to physical security, even things like, learn how to check if somebody's following you with a car, check your mirror in the car. It's basic, and it becomes just normal in your routine.
So there are really, it's again about consistency. Consistency in establishing a routine, or consistency into breaking the routine. So I have 55 slides here. I won't go through them. I will share them with all of you. These are our security protocols, the open security protocols that I can share with you. It's always, the digital surveillance is always a precursor to something, or may always be a precursor to something much, much grave than that, which is the physical harm, the physical security. And I'll just skim through this, but it's really important, by protecting yourself, it goes without saying, that you're protecting everyone. there's good habits like this, like simple ones, install the updates, reboot your phone every day. How, spyware works usually, if you reboot your phone every day, they will have to reinitialize the spyware, and that means an additional cost. So you always want to increase the cost of the people trying to put you under surveillance. There's, of course, there are no click attacks and other things like that. So you gotta be aware of those. Try to, obviously, use block ads and block every possibility for you to be surveilled, to be followed online, which is not always possible. Strong authentication, strong passwords, of course. And all of that. Again, I'll share this with you here. Use password managers. Some of them are free, some of them are paid for, not that expensive. Two-factor authentication, I hope everybody here uses YubiKeys to authenticate, to log into their email or into your other services. This is crucial. Actually, the founder of YubiKeys, of Yubico, Stina Ehrensvard, she's coming now with she's working on new digital identity protocols that will protect people more when it comes to your online presence. So I'm hoping she will launch that quite soon. Network security for the entire organization and for your home network, it's very important. Be aware of the vulnerabilities with Bluetooth, with other kind of smart devices. Always try to use, obviously, VPN. Be wary of public Wi-Fi's and other things like this.
Maybe the VPN thing, I think it's particularly important if you want to say one.
How many of you are using VPN at this moment? So a few of you, yeah. VPN is really, it relays your traffic through places where, your true intentions, let's say, cannot be exposed that easily. You hop from place to place. There are various types of VPNs. I always recommend you using VPNs, especially right now with the internet speeds. It's not such a big nuisance to use the VPN. It's actually a good practice. And especially now, because the world is changing around us, and some countries that were considered safe, are not safe anymore. Be very much aware when you cross borders. Unfortunately, the US is now a dangerous place for Europeans, as we've seen in the past months. So we gotta be aware of, cleaning up our devices, putting the information on the cloud as much as possible, and always encrypted. Having, not having too much too heavy of a social media presence, that can be easily identified, especially if you're investigating matters that are very, very hard, and sensitive. So this is not easy to follow, obviously, because everybody we have our own lives and always, our own ways of doing things, but try to have like a security hygiene as much as possible. I won't go through all of these, but limit app permissions, be aware of the zero-day type of attacks, what's secure right now, what's not secure, what's has medium security kind of provisions. Use Signal. In my opinion, that's the best advice when it comes to security.
Approved by Pentagon.
Approved by Pentagon, yeah. Even they targeted the Houthis, right, using Signal. But don't add unknown persons to your Signal groups, right?
Yeah, tricky.
As it happened.
Added to the right groups. That's also.
Yeah, which may be a good source, of information. Yeah. So obviously, email encryption. Be very much aware of the fact that. So when people sue you in court, what they usually do is, obviously, they hire a law firm to go against you. But many law firms in the UK, in the US, offer multiple type of services. It's not just the lawyers. They also have a side where they can investigate, where they can investigate you online and offline. They can send private detectives after you, after your family. They can try to break into your things to see your social media presence. There's all sorts of other things that unfortunately these companies would engage themselves into, and obviously, you know, they will try to social engineer you, to send you a phishing type of email, to make you, you know, give up some information that can be used against you, to first of all build maybe compromise on you, compromising information that can, you know, affect you, but also to use this information in the court case against you. So all of this is connected. This is why I'm saying, you know, legal, digital, physical, it goes hand in hand, because there's always a component that goes from there to there. Now, Pabla has had some interesting experiences. You're probably familiar with the very tragic case of our colleague Jan Kuciak, who was assassinated in Slovakia a few years ago. Pabla was working directly with Jan Kuciak, and because she started investigating the case, she was a target herself of the investigators, of the police. And can you tell a little bit of the story about your devices?
Yeah, I was called to Slovakia, even though I don't live there, and I'm not citizen of Slovakia, to give a witness testimony. I said, okay, I will come. I came, and the interrogation took 7 hours, but an hour before it ended, they told me, well, you need to give us your phone. What for me as a journalist was like, no way, guys. And they said, well, you have to, because it's not like that you are willing or not, because we have a document signed by prosecutor that you must give us your phone. And I was like asking, like, am I suspect, you know, am I charged with something that you want my phone? And they said, no, it's because of the investigation, but we have all the documents. So if you wouldn't give us your phone, you know, we are going to give you a fine of 1,500 euros, and we will take the phone by force. So don't bring phones when you are going to meet with the police.
Yeah, that's always good advice when you have to deal with law enforcement. You know, don't take the phone with you. Same when you have to deal with various types of sources.
Take different phone. You know, they usually don't know what kind of a phone you are using or the email. Just take random phone, give it to them.
But especially when you cross borders, you know, try to get a new phone, recreate it from the cloud once you're in the country in a safe place, and so on. Ceci, you've also been, and I mean, Italian journalists have been exposed to all sorts of spyware. Italy has a tradition when it comes to this type of attacks as well. Can you tell us a little bit about your experiences at IRPI, and how do you protect yourself?
Well, as far as we are aware, we haven't had cases directly, but over the last month, there's been news of other Italian journalists that have been spied by government agencies, especially the secret services, through spywares, an Israeli spyware. And unfortunately, there is, for us, not much ways of checking what happened. Of course, there are some, there is Citizen Lab, and actually these days here in Perugia, I know there is some walk-in organized, I think, by ECOS Alliance, so we might all of us want to go and have a check. But yes, it's an increasing problem, and it's a challenge, because how, you know, what Paul has been mentioning, all the last things, then how much you can do that in practice of your everyday life, because some of the reporting that we do on, for example, field work in Italy, like you can now go around without your phone, you need Google Maps to navigate, otherwise you get lost in the middle of the countryside of Sicily, and that might turn even worse than, you know, not being surveilled. So how do you mitigate the risks and with the need of, you know, being a journalist and meeting your sources? And so I'll keep it very brief, but basically we do a security protocol, and we do an analysis, which we have learned a lot from OCCRP security desk, and our editors try to understand by talking to the reporters, and we offer that also to the freelance reporters who work with or for us, to try and understand the challenges, the risks, and also, you know, you might have very different type of risk. It could be a very like physical risk, meaning like you go and news into a location in which they might, you know, harass you and like punch you in the face, and that's one type of risk. Or you might be surveilled for weeks or months digitally because they just want to know what you're up to and listening to your conversations, or a mixture of the two things, like they're actually surveilling you to know where your physical location is to then do something like steal your laptop or beat you up. So all of that we try to mitigate, we try to understand, and then usually during field works there is always a security desk, meaning like one of our editors knows when you're going in a location, out of a location, and we are aware of the risk of talking to cops, but usually, and that's an advice I give, have one or two cops that you can actually trust in the place you're operating, because in case things get really, well, we report a lot about organized crime, so in that case, it's good to have one good cop on your phone, you know, on your contacts. But at the same time, there are other situations in which you want to be as far away from cops as possible. So all of that work needs to be understood in advance and planned. And then, yeah, this is again, it looks like some science fiction, but we all have learned the bad way that it's important to understand the risk, and especially for source protection. We do what we in Italian call the interviste nude, meaning like you go without devices. And that's really the only way to protect some of your most sensitive sources. At least if you don't have a lot of capital that you can change all your devices and be 100% sure. But then the other problem is that the source, you need also to make sure that the source doesn't have the devices under surveillance. So in the end, our conclusion is, okay, let's try and meet without digital devices. But that also means that your structure, like your editors, need to be exactly able to locate you and know how to support you.
That's critical. I mean, editors, and if there are editors in this room, you know, you are responsible for the security of the reporters. That is one of the main roles of the editor. Legal security, physical, digital security. You have to maintain the operational security at all times and to think, you know, where are the points of failure? Where are the weaknesses in an organization? Who are the people most exposed? Is an Italian journalist going to go, you know, to report in East Africa? You know, does that person have enough support locally to be able to operate there? These are questions that you need to ask yourself ahead of time, and be paranoid. Paranoia, in the case of security, is actually good. What we're doing at OCCRP is, whenever a reporter sees something that's out of place, you know, and we know that that reporter is in a dangerous environment, we take them out of those countries. We have funding, we have places where we take the reporters to safety, and sometimes their families as well. So this is something that, as an editor, as a media, you have to keep into account, because most of all, you want to keep people safe. So I'll just jump now to the third component of this, which is the physical security, newsroom safety. And of course, you know, this is a huge topic. And unfortunately, as I mentioned before, we have really tragic, experiences, and because it is a very dangerous job. You can see here, I mean, there's more and more of these, right? I mean, we see what's going on right now in Gaza. We see what's going on, I mean, all over the place. The level of danger increased many times. So, you know, various, again, like in the case of legal security, digital security, you gotta understand and quantify over time who the enemies are, because enemies will pile up as a journalist. And enemies don't always strike at the time you do the reporting, you publish the reporting. They may wait for a while. They may try to sue you first. They may try to put some spyware on you first. You know, it's like in that saying, you know, plata o plomo. You know, they might try to bribe you. You know, there are many such cases. And when they will see that it doesn't work because you're an honest journalist, they will, perhaps resort to violence against you in various ways. So some obvious things, try to protect yourself as best as possible, and I'll speak a little bit later about surveillance and counter-surveillance. Report the threat. When you see a threat, even if you believe that you might be paranoid, talk to the editors, talk to your colleagues, tell them, I think I'm followed. I think don't, be kind of wary of the fact that you might sound like a crazy person or anything like that. There's no such thing. You are all experienced investigative reporters. If you notice something out of place, that's not because you're crazy. That's because you have a lot of experience. So this is always, where you need to report the threat and to talk at least to your editor, hey, I believe this is something that, it might be, that in some cases you'll notice things that might seem out of place and are not. But it's better to be safe than sorry. So don't stay isolated, always look for surveillance, and always your reporting is the first line of defense. We're dealing a lot with organized crime. And it's interesting because criminals usually have this conspiratorial kind of thinking where they don't see you as the enemy. They see you as a tool. There's got to be someone else behind you. We're accused very often, OCCRP, CIA, it's DEA, it's Mossad, it's all sorts of things. This is because the people that we report on cannot really comprehend the fact that a bunch of reporters can do this type of damage against them. They gotta have a greater enemy. They gotta have someone against them that's worthy. And you as journalists are not worthy for them because you're nothing. So that's kind of the mindset that we sometimes can use to our advantage. But things may change when they realize that this is after all your work. Then that's that things become very, very dicey. As I said before, editors are responsible for the safety of journalists always, and you have to think about scenarios. You have to think about how best to protect the reporters who are actually working in the front line, in the places of danger. Safety should be baked into the story. When you report on the criminals, we, for instance, at OCCRP, we report on criminal gangs, and we know a lot of personal data. And you do too, Ceci, and you do too, Pavla. And we never publish that personal data. If the wife of the mobster has an affair with someone else, which happens very, very often, that's not a place for the investigative reporting to use that kind of information. That not only is something that's not necessarily in the public interest, in that sense, but it will also put you in great danger. Now, it happens with OCCRP that we report in a very honest way on criminals, and years later or months later, they become sources for us. So there's a dynamic there that you can create by being honest in your reporting. Honesty in the reporting and being fair will always decrease the risk to some degree. It won't eliminate the risk, but it will decrease it a little bit.
I will just quickly jump in. The most dangerous criminal or mobster is the one that's surprised. So if you are fair, if you do fair reporting and you give them right of reply or comment on their angle of the story, then they would know what's going on. They can report to their boss. Like, there's like this stupid journalist, there's gonna be story, but we are handling it, we have the lawyers. But if this guy who is probably not at the top of the chain doesn't know what's going on, and then the boss is going to ask and there is no answer, then his life is in danger, what means your life is in danger.
So stories, how you write stories, it's really, really like your first line of defense. Yeah, please, George.
Yeah, maybe, now it doesn't happen that much anymore, but when we started, we would do this thing asking for comments, and many times we had this reaction of, well, okay, we don't talk to you, or like, go and, because they would then they would find the story on like mainstream media when we weren't a media yet, and they would be like, oh, but I thought you were just, un blogger sfigato. It means like, a poor blogger. And this thing, if I learned something, like this thing was actually dangerous because it surprised them. So perhaps try to, if you're a freelance, for example, or if you're still like a small media, try to partner with somebody a bit bigger, or just steal their name just for the sake of, you know, the interview, because otherwise you might have exactly that surprise effect, which you don't want to have.
Yeah. And also, I mean, like, there's lots of advice on this, but, you know, when you have to confront someone who's dangerous, you know, always try to deflect the risk. Like, if Ceci would be to have a meeting with a mafia person, you know, here in Perugia, I would advise Ceci to not go to the meeting, but, you know, to have someone from OCCRP from another country either go to the meeting or contact the person better online, you know, or go through a lawyer or go. So always try to protect the locals. You know, the locals are the most exposed to the local organized crime organization. So when we work in Mexico, we never send even like the Mexican reporters to get information from offices of like all sorts of government offices. You need a property record. It's never good for a Mexican journalist to go there to ask for the property record, because that person will be identified and might be in the crosshairs of organized crime if you're following for something like that. So there's various strategies that you can do there. You may ask for data in bulk. You may ask for data, you know, via a lawyer. You should always think every situation, you know, like what can you do best to protect the reporter. And one of the you know, questions that we always ask when we report on something dangerous is, are these persons gonna kill us? You know, have they killed before? What kind of behavior does this criminal group have? Is the 'Ndrangheta gonna harm someone? Have they harmed someone in that particular region of Italy? Is the Sinaloa gonna harm someone who's in Guatemala? Have they operated across the frontier from Mexico? And so on. So the idea is to always analyze the risk and to think about, yes. So, as I said before, always report the threat. If you trust the police, go to the police, report it for sure with your editors, with your colleagues, with other journalists, and so on. So risk is always, you know, impact, you know, and I mean, what's probable? You know, what kind of damage will your reporting do to the person? Assess the risk, and assess the risk beyond the article. Try to think from the point of view of the person that you're exposing. Because sometimes we don't know the whole story with what we're reporting. We're reporting on facts. We have the documents, but try to think, you know, beyond the documents. Surveillance, you know, it's a big topic with us. At OCCRP, we organize surveillance and counter-surveillance training for editors, where you undergo this training for a few days. You're followed in a city, and you have to identify the surveillance that's put on you. Surveillance is usually the precursors to assassination or to other type of violent acts. It's in almost all cases when journalists were killed by organized crime, especially, they were followed for weeks on end before they were harmed, before they were assassinated. And I think we've seen this quite a bit. And that surveillance can be physical surveillance, surveillance can be digital surveillance, can be other types of surveillance through neighbors, or surveillance through, you know, your kids that go to kindergarten, or your grandparents, and you know, so everybody, unfortunately, around you can be exposed to some level of danger, and you have to be aware of that. Look for surveillance. Try to always think about, you know, like what would be the benefit of that organized crime figure or that oligarch in killing you. Will they benefit from this? Will they want to give a signal to other journalists, not to, so that other journalists don't do this type of work? This is very, very important. The economy of a murder is very important of a possible murder is very important to understand. We talked about writing for safety. Don't embarrass people. That's very, very important. You know, don't say, you know, the mobster has a small dick or something like that, even if you have a photo, you know, or anything like that, because they share something in there. I mean, it's interesting. Something, you know, this type of you know, flourishing in the article may be more hurtful to them, and maybe what determines, you know, going against you, than the actual fact that you expose the big corruption and the big criminality. It's very, very, yeah.
Like if you damage the honor.
Yeah, honor among criminals, you know, it's an important factor. Always, you know, always try to plan for the safety, you know, in a group and all of that. So I'll stop here, I think, not before saying that, you know, I mean, everything that you do as a journalist should be about the public interest, should be business. It's never personal. From going to the legal side, you know, where you go through discovery, and if you said, I hate this guy, this is why I'm investigating the person, where you lose, to the fact that if you know, the way you interact with these people will come across, and they can become, you know, more dangerous if you take it personal. And I know some journalists, you know, take it as a vendetta kind of thing, and that's really, really not good. Are we out of time?
Yeah, we're out of time.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, perhaps time for one question or something like that. Sorry, it's all done.
Well, maybe we can, yeah.
We'll share with you these presentations, and yeah, I'm sorry, it's a lot to cover, and we were yeah, maybe. Thank you. Oh, I thought we had 10 more minutes.
No, 50 minutes.
3:50.
Oh God.
It's okay.
You should have slapped me.